Welcome to the 293 Co podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about childhood trauma. So let's get into it. I know this is going to be really hard because you got to dig deep into the soul and unpeel a lot of layers of yourself.
Yeah, start off by looking in the mirror. Basically with childhood trauma, it sucks when you have to wait till you get to adulthood to realize your trauma, because you got to unmask it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You got to unmask it. Then you got to deal with it. Then you got to really come to grips of going through the stages of grieving your loss through your childhood trauma. And what I mean by grieving your loss is being able to adapt to what you wasn't allowed to be able to do, if you know what I'm saying. Because, when you're going through childhood trauma, it's devastating. You may have to hold a lot of stuff in. You have to put on this whole entire mask of being somebody that you're not. It creates being shy, being timid, being angry a lot, ready to just run away from the world, run away from your problems. And then when you grow up as an adult, you still dealing with it. That little child hanging on by a thread, hanging on to your leg, help me. I'm still here. But if you don't know how to help yourself, how you going to help the little version of you?
The thing is, when you're a child, you don't really always know. We never look at it as children. We're not taught to look at it as trauma, part of the fabric of parenting.
You think it's you think it's part of your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You think that okay, you know what, this happened to me, and as I get older, I'm going to be able to forget about it and move on with my life. But it doesn't happen that way. You know what I'm saying? It turns into other stuff. For some people, it turns into substance abuse.
No, it does.
For some people, it turns into, other things that are not good for you, as far as being violent towards other people, walking around angry all the time. It drains the life and energy out of you when you have childhood trauma, because even as an adult, there's a part of you that's still that child. You still trying to figure out how can I overcome? But overcome in a way to where you be well, you don't want nobody to know what's going on with you.
That's true.
Because you still your own prisoner at heart. Because it's just what goes on behind closed doors, stay behind closed doors. And then sometimes, when you do try to reach out to family members and people that you feel like you can trust, they try to rewire your brain to be oh, it wasn't that bad. Oh, you just thinking it happened like that. It didn't happen like that. So then you left confused. You. Yeah. Or somebody said, well, it happened to all of us. You know what I'm saying? Just back in our generation or whatever, what was more known in our time was when you get in trouble, you get your ass whooped.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? You got the switch, you got the belt. Hell, I knew some friends who even got the extension cord, Mm-hmm. So it's just whatever you was brought up on in that time. But you look at it now, it's there's nothing wrong with a good ass whooping, Because when we was going to school, we was still allowed to get paddled in school. If your parents signed that little slip, you were still able to get paddled. That was all the way up to my 8th grade, but not my 8th grade, my middle school year. But I think it got stopped by my 6th grade year. But yeah, you were still able to still get the paddle. You know what I'm saying? And so most people see that, oh, that's devastating. That's devastating. Well, the thing of it is just that there's different ways of discipline. Now how we was brought up, people try not to discipline like that anymore. Some people still do, but they try to change it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because, back then, it was devastating when you had to get your ass whooped. You trying to defend yourself, close your face and everything. Right, especially when you getting whooped by a switch. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole tree branch.
Right.
So, it's all different types of childhood trauma, just even verbally. Mm-hmm. Some kids go through where parents be you know what? That's why I didn't want you anyway. When, kids go through that start up abandonment issues. When you have an absent parent in your life, that's another childhood trauma.
Divorce.
If you have a parent that's on substance abuse or alcoholic, you know what I'm saying? All these different types of trauma stays within that child. Mm-hmm. Because one thing that was never talked about was communication back then. Oh. Back in our generation, you getting your ass beat and it's you trying to cry or whatever. Don't you cry, shut up. You know what I'm saying? You getting talked to while you getting your ass beat. And it's just kind of okay, 1 + 1 don't equal 2 in this situation. What am I supposed to do?
Well, it's they try to control, as parents, being raised, you're dealing with your parents' trauma. So that trauma is put onto you, even though you wasn't part of that trauma. But, in the midst of them whooping you, those traumas come out. I remember, I'm dealing with trauma therapy right now. Today was my first day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I had to look at, peel back some serious layers to my childhood and then see how that affected me in so many ways. So it was my first day. So it was interesting and very emotional. But at the same time, I learned when I was going through it, I was very angry.
That's the first step.
I tried to beat people up, but I didn't realize that more fear of being abandoned.
True.
So definitely got abandonment issues.
So you never thought you had abandonment issues before, or you never just crossed your mind?
It never crossed my mind, but I guess what I did was I didn't think about it.
Oh, okay. You had it closed off.
I didn't think about it, but then it showed up in other ways in my life as far as my relationship with folks, and I'm not just talking about romantic. I'm talking about friendship, familyship, jobship. These are all things that now that I look at, like, it definitely did show up.
Right.
And now I learned that, we're taught to love, especially in the Black community, we're taught to love with condition.
Explain that.
So when your parents, when you're a child, you learn those conditions because you want validation. You want to be loved, you want to be heard, you want to be seen by your caretaker. So you try to go above and beyond to do the right things, because if they say, well, the reason you never want to make your caretaker upset, because if you make them upset, then they won't like you anymore, nor will they love you anymore. So what does that mean? They push you to the side. And some parents, they were pretty good at manipulation, gaslighting, and stonewalling.
True.
And so when you come to this realization that, oh, okay, if I do everything correct, then, I get that good job. Kid, we do it all the time. Your kids get an A+, 100% on the test. Good job. When your kid get an F, we don't ask them, what happened here. We ask them, you can do better.
Right.
So we put these conditions on that child and we teach them, oh, in order to get good positive feedback, I got to do all these A, B, and C and forget about the negative, even though they're tied to my feelings, my emotions. And so I become a people pleaser. So that's where I learned it, abandonment and people pleasing.
Yeah. When I had to go through my trauma in therapy and I first started, one thing that I noticed with myself was everything came back. You feel it in your body.
Right.
So I felt like, reliving everything all over again.
Yeah.
Being tense all the time. Never knew how to relax around people.
Right.
Never knew how to relax in general because I was always so stiff. And like you said, when it comes to like learning what abandonment really was, and we're just like, oh, I do suffer from that. But I also want to always just be alone. And that was kind of hard to justify, like feeling abandoned 1 minute, but wanting to be left alone the next minute. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You got to figure both of them out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing that I had a hard time with. But I always wanted my dad to be in my life, but I didn't know how to communicate with him because I seen him in a different light from how everybody else saw him. See, it's one thing when you see your parents, how they really are behind closed doors. And then it's confusing when you see a parent outside of the home and how he interact with other people.
Oh, man.
So as a child, it's just like, well, damn, I can't get that other side.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I got the side that nobody never saw.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But everybody else got the side that, they was able to enjoy and like.
They were caring, loving,
everything.
They were being heard, seen, respected.
And see, I got all those things from my mom, but my mom was also hardworking. You know what I'm saying? She did what she had to do for us to survive.
Mm-hmm.
She made ends meet. And that's something that, I watched as a child. Like, man, I used to think like, okay, my mom is strong. You know what I'm saying? Like, she pushed through. She's sitting here, she taking all this stuff that's going on, but she's still moving. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I didn't know how to really take that or really truly understood it because, see, I seen two different sides from each parent. Right. So what I did as a child was I built my own self.
So self-soothing.
So it was pretty much what I built was a robot that was a brick.
Oh.
So I protected myself all the way around. I observed people, but at the same time, I was broken. But see, I never let people see the cracks on the outside of the brick. I was cracked inside. But outside, it looked like I had my shit together and I was holding myself up. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I would walk around so timid and stubborn, like, you know what? I don't need my dad. But little Boney needed him.
Damn.
So as I got older, I struggled with that within myself, because with childhood trauma of you really needing that parent, no matter how old you get, you always just want that parent to be able to say, you know what? I'm sorry I wasn't here for you. I'm going to protect you. I never felt that way with him, because I built up in my own mind, you know what? My dad is a stranger to me. I don't know him. I never allowed myself to get close.
Damn. So how are you dealing with that now? Like, what's the process of healing that trauma piece from your dad?
I'm still working on it. But you know what? In my process, when I went through it in the beginning, was just like, well, now I can't even really work on it, because I was just like, I was going through therapy, and me and my therapist was working on, you know what I'm saying? I was going to make that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was actually going to confront my dad and let him know how I felt, because I never would tell him how I felt. I would always hide under my mom, and I would talk to my mom about it. You know what I'm saying? But I never got the opportunity because he died.
Damn.
So that put like more weight on me, because now I work so hard to try to build up that courage, because you don't just go to your parents and just tell your parents how you feel, because it's a respect thing, especially when you live in the South. You're supposed to honor your parents, you respect your parents, and yada yada yada. You know what I'm saying? So like, oh, that was going on in my head. Like, how can I do it in a correct way to where like I get what I need to say across, but at the same time be respectful,
right?
And so that was weighing on me too, but I never got the opportunity because he passed away unexpectedly, and it was just like, man. So then that just brought on more anger. So then I was just stuck with Little Boney. It was just me and Little Boney. And I'm just like, Little Boney go away. But Little Boney couldn't go away, because where was I going to put Little Boney? I haven't done dealing with my issues.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's just like, one thing that I can say to people is like, if you have a parent or, hell, even siblings or whatever, that you feel like you need to get stuff across to, don't think that time is always going to be on your side. Because it's a whole different story. If you wait too long and that person pass away, you will never get that opportunity. Because even writing a letter and me saying it out loud, it still didn't find me peace. You know what I'm saying?
So what if you would have told him? What would have been his reaction? Sorry, guys.
Honestly, I think he would have just looked at me. He probably would have just heard me talk. And we probably would have just been staring at each other. Because it was kind of like, everybody always tell me like, oh, you look like your dad. You look like your dad. And I hated when people said that, because I didn't want to be a product of him. Mm-hmm. See, I seen the side of him that most people never saw. So like when people said that to me, I'm thinking like, damn, I'm about to be like him. Mm-hmm. So as a kid, I was hella confused. I didn't want to be like him. You know what I'm saying? So the thing of it is just that like, if I would have had the opportunity to have that conversation with him, I really, really honestly just feel like I probably would have been more at peace with myself. I'm like, you know what? I done said what I needed to say. Mm-hmm. And then I would have been okay. Not okay in the aspect like I'm just going to go and live with life and be happy. Nah, I think I would have been fine, because I would have been able to just get it out.
Right. Okay.
Because, when you hold in so much from child all the way to adulthood, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, but I mean, like, and it's still work, because it's just like I'm still working on childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. Just from, stuff that happened in my past. And so, I talk to my mom a lot, and like, I'll tell my mom stuff now where it's like, yeah, remember how we grew up and how things are and stuff like that. Sometimes like I give her a different light of how to see things, and she sees stuff and she's more open to stuff as far as like, yeah, you're right. You know what I'm saying? When I got nieces and nephews, and, my mom is a grandma now and stuff like that.
Right.
You know what? She really takes on a lot of what I say, mm-hmm. and like apply those things. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's always good conversation. But I mean, it's hard when you're dealing with childhood trauma. You never really know how bad it's going to affect you. And I think like when I was playing sports, that was me trying to run away from everything. Because, when we were younger, you feel like if I'm running away from stuff and I keep busy, I don't have to think about it.
I thought that initially, playing sports all my life since I was 4. But at some point it catches up with you. And that's the part I feel like, for me, I didn't quite understand the emotions behind it.
Right.
I knew that, at the time I had all these feelings in my body, which like masked into anger. I remember beating people up, and being very reactive. But, as a child, I didn't understand like why I was so angry, and like I knew that I was sad about things, but I would tell myself, oh, I can't be sad. So sports became an outlet for me,
Right.
until it wasn't. And shit, I barely got a scholarship, honestly.
Wow.
Barely, because not because, I wasn't a good player. I was an awesome player. I mean, the news in the paper speaks for itself, but my anger, like my fear of being abandoned, was taking its toll on me. And no adult could help me. I mean, I had this, how they have this school nurse, the school therapist.
And you had the guidance counselor.
Yeah, I had the guidance counselor, which was, he's still a close friend of mine. I look at him as family. But there was a school therapist that they brought in for the school at that time. And let's just say he didn't give me great advice, and it went downhill from there, and I spiraled. But, I my anger was, nobody asked me like, Charity, why are you angry?
Well, back then I don't think people knew how to ask, why were you angry?
Nah.
If you think about it, like back then, if you was angry or whatever, people would just substitute and say, oh, you just bad. You just bad for no reason.
Yeah, that's what I would get.
And that's what they would say. And so, like, you know what? People just play into that. Oh, that child just bad. But nobody ever got to the root of the cause.
No.
Why is this kid really acting out? What's going on at home? Everybody, if you notice back then, nobody ever really asked what's going on at home, because you couldn't tell. And people, even if they assumed, they couldn't ask.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried to, I think for me, it was, there was a lot going at home, but I was a people pleaser. And I felt like if I expressed my feelings or tell them what exactly am I going through, number one, they're not going to get it.
Right.
They're going to think, that's just not, true. Secondly, they don't even know how to deal with their own shit. Third, it's just like, people are more worried about them and not a friendship. So, I learned through this getting older that you got to definitely care about yourself. I put everybody on a pedestal, my friends, family members, because I cared. And I know what it felt like to be unloved and not being seen. So I try to make that for my friends, my family, and not realizing that I was drowning, which it showed up, in my everyday life, which I barely got a scholarship on. And the conditions were my temper.
So let me ask you this. Do you feel like dealing with childhood trauma and trying to be in a relationship that you had a hard time letting people get close to you?
I remember my first close friend. We were close friends at the time, and then also we became relationship partners. And I remember her saying that I'm not being vulnerable. Like, I'm not opening up. I'm not expressing how I feel, because I didn't know how to express how I felt. And so all I could express was, well, I'm angry.
Okay.
You got me pissed off, but I couldn't express those emotions where it was like, you know what? I have so much love for you. And just describing that love to her was hard.
So you weren't able to be carefree with it?
No, I was very guarded. And don't get me wrong, we loved each other very dearly. And, but she would always say that. I didn't believe it because I'm like, I do express my feelings. I'm showing that I'm angry. And it wasn't until later on, when I was out of the Florida and we were no longer together, I got it. But I still didn't know how to express that feeling or those emotions that I had for her. So that was the battle. And that part I can say that, I take full responsibility on that one.
But let me ask you this, though. Do you feel that the people who deal with childhood trauma are the hardest to love?
Yes. And especially, here's the thing. I learned that it's an ACE, when you're the level of childhood trauma. There's different levels of childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you start reaching that higher level of trauma, it becomes very difficult to love you, just to love that person, because they're so guarded. They're like, they've been independent for so long. They learn how to soothe themselves,
right,
and not look for validation, even though they need it. Like, so when somebody come along, it's a battle having it out, and it becomes a sabotage at the same time.
Well, I don't think for me, I don't think when you deal with childhood trauma and nobody's been there for you and you had to figure it out on your own, I think you get to the point to where you realize you don't need validation from anybody else because it doesn't matter.
If that childhood trauma it does, though.
But what I'm saying is just that, everybody's childhood trauma is different.
Mm-hmm.
But if you build yourself up to where you showing up for you and only you because you don't trust nobody else, then you don't need validation from other people. Because sometimes when other people give you validation, you're going to question whether or not it's real.
That's true. But here's the question. Showing up for yourself, what does that look like? Because if you can't show up, I'm going to tell you this now. This is where I had the major issue when my ex asked me one time, do you love yourself? Fuck yeah, I love myself. How? I couldn't respond. I showed up for myself. I'm guarded, but I couldn't love myself. So I'm not really taking care of myself in a way.
But you still showed up for yourself. You said that
in an unhealthy way, though.
But you still showed up for yourself.
Unhealthy.
The thing of it is unhealthy, but at the same time, you showed up for yourself in a way to where you felt like, hey, I still got to protect me. Because it's a difference. You can show up for yourself and be in, fight or flight mode and still not know how to love yourself, but you showing up in a way to where you know what? Nobody's going to hurt me.
Yeah, but that's unhealed trauma. Because what if somebody come along that's worth your time, and I, like I said, with Tanya, we had our moments, and she, was my best friend. But even though I couldn't show up for her, nor could I show up for myself.
Right.
So that relationship is going to go in a way that it shouldn't go.
But you know what? The thing of it is, too, that people got to realize, when you get in a relationship, is that you cannot expect for your partner to show up for you the way you want them to, because they may not be able to give it to you. So it's either coming down to you have to accept what they can give you at the moment. And then if you really love that person, hang in there till they can get you to the end. But don't fully depend on them, because that's codependency.
That's codependency.
But at the same time, trauma is one of those things that can't be rushed. It can't.
Right. But at the time, I didn't think it was trauma.
But no, at the time, I see what I'm saying. I'm talking about here in the present day, though.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? I see what you're saying, because for me, I know I'm hard as hell to love.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have built this empire in my brain that is just I can give so much, but so much get taken away,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So the more that's taken away from me,
Mm-hmm.
that is making me have to either rebuild differently because I can't put it back up how it was because it's already been torn down, or I have to tell myself to move along and start over again.
Yeah, but what if...
but I mean, it's just like this. When you've been hurt for so much
Mm-hmm.
in life, from a kid all the way to adulthood, no matter what it is, your brain mess with you.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You have that mentality where it's like, man, damn, it's me against the world now. But it's like, why allow other people that you don't know to hurt you? Hell, you can hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you really losing? You lose more if somebody else hurts you. But if you hurt yourself, you ain't really losing anything. It's kind of like a win-win because you already know what to expect. Because you've been putting yourself down for so long. Because you may blame yourself for the childhood trauma. Like, man, I should have stuck up for myself then. I should have had a voice. You know, whatever it could be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
You do that.
Because can't nobody tear you down better than yourself.
That's true.
You become your own worst enemy.
But then there's people who also come along and they take advantage of that
They take advantage
of that emotion, that feeling, that the problems that you have. They take advantage of that. They come in and they pretend to be your savior. And at that time, when you're unhealed, you think it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah. You may say, oh, they taking care of me. They have my best interests at heart. No, the hell they don't.
And then you find out that this person don't have your best interest at heart. It was always about them and never you. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Do you feel like sometimes that like when people get to know people or people jump in a relationship or whatever it could be, even friendship, do you feel like sometimes people take each other for face value during the interview process?
I believe so. I think folks come in with their representative because here's the thing. When we're unhealed, you know, our unhealed self, we meet unhealed people. We meet people who are predators and ready to, you know, are prey, ready to take, you know, people take advantage of people. And so when we see that person sitting across from us, you know, they don't come with their authentic self. Neither did I come with my authentic self. I think maybe I've tried, but I know there was some parts where I kept dark.
I think we all been like that. And I mean, I feel like that's okay because it's like this. You can't just tell everybody your story.
True.
You can't give people bits and pieces and people want to pry and be like, well, what happened? Well, how did you do about that? Or people try to tell you how you should go about things. Because your process is your process, especially if you're doing it in a healthy way. Because sometimes most people who tell you how you should be doing something, they're not even doing what the hell they need to be doing.
You're absolutely right.
So it's like, why the hell would I listen to you? You know what I'm saying? And then like real talk. Some people could say, oh, that happened to me. And they can just go along and just say it and act like nothing's fazing them. But deep down inside, how many times have you like went through that routine in your head to where you could talk about it and not feel it? But you could talk about it and be like, oh, well, I'm cool now. No, you're not.
No, when you're still talking about stuff, it's because it still hurts. The pain is still there. You haven't dealt with it. Right. It was a trauma, so it's unhealed. And a lot of people are like, well, it was the past. It's the past. Yeah, it is the past. But you got to learn how to move forward or else you're going to be unhealed. That's why it's called unhealed trauma.
Yeah. And I mean, unhealed trauma do creep up on you. Trust and believe. Especially when you feel like you done ran away from it or you feel like, oh, I'm going to get a new job or I'm going to move out of state and do all this stuff. You're running. You're running because it's just like this. I mean, I wake up every morning and damn, little Boney right there.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't until I had to do that chair exercise where I actually had to have conversations with little Boney in therapy. And then I had to be little Boney to talk to adult Boney. That was the hardest therapy session of my life. And I used to hate every time I would have to constantly go do it. The only reason why I'm not doing it now is because when COVID happened, I haven't been able to physically go back into therapy.
Right.
Because, it's my therapy is virtual now. But that's the only thing that saved me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know I still have work to do with that. And I'm still ready to face it, because like I said, got to get to the root of the cause. But the thing of it is that childhood trauma stick with you for a very long time. Even when you think you have fully healed, you're going to have moments.
Yeah. I mean, my grandma said it best before she passed away is deal with yourself. Take care of your mental. Yeah. And like I said, I didn't know what exactly that meant. But, as you get older, that unhealed trauma gets worse.
Yeah, it does.
It seems to creep back in, and it causes a lot of problems and a lot of relationships that should never been had. So it's about taking care of yourself and try to heal that inner child.
Yeah, and the inner child is a beast.
Yeah.
Because that inner child don't be wanting to go nowhere. That inner child will have your ass handcuffed to the door.
Right.
You won't be able to open that door because that bitch locked. You know what I'm saying? And it's the hardest because when you go through childhood trauma therapy, it really tears you down. But you have to be torn down and rebuilt. But then that's the hard part, because then you're figuring out who you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Because you walk around for so long trying to protect that little person of you, but at the same time be guarded of everybody else. And it's just you have to learn how to let the little version of you go. Mm-hmm. But even still to this day, that little bitch stubborn.
So here's my question to you. So what happens if little Boney goes away? Then where would that lead you? And who would you become?
See, that's what I'm still working on. See, the thing of it is just that being able to reinvent me. What I mean by that is actually get to be who I want to be. Mm-hmm. Because see, little Boney, when little Boney was growing up, you know what I'm saying? Little Boney became what everybody else wanted little Boney to be.
Yeah. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I never really got the opportunity to express myself and do all the things and the stuff that I wanted to do. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? Kind of put my hands nibbled and dibbled in so much. Mm-hmm. But hey, sports was one of the things that I was good at naturally.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I love sports. I still love sports. That's where my heart is. You know what I'm saying? But the thing of it is just that if I didn't have sports, I always think of still to this day, what would I have done? Don't know. I have no clue. You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of hard to think about.
It is hard to think about when you get older. It's man, what would I have done? Would I have went into the military? What would I have done? Because, if you think about it, as a child, you grow up mimicking one of your parents.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you do.
Really. And that thing, that's one of the things that it doesn't bother me, but I think about it a lot when I see, people, they have a kid and they be like, oh, I want a boy, or I want a girl. I want them to be this and that. Why do that to your child? Mm-hmm. Let your child be free and let your child grow up to be whatever they want to be. Let them develop into their own. A lot of parents don't let their kids do that.
No, because even when we're parents, some of us, we give our kids condition.
Right.
And that's where
that's kind of but if you think about it though, to me, that's kind of that's trauma within itself.
Oh no, it is. Love condition is trauma.
Where you see
teaching them.
You see these families be like, oh, my child or my son or my daughter gonna grow up, they're gonna be a doctor because we're doctors in this family. How do you know your child want to do that? Your child might want to be a cook or a lawyer or an athlete or, whatever, but
photographer,
they want to be a journalist.
Right.
But nowadays, people have kids because the kid's supposed to be their 401k plan.
Yeah, a lot of parents think that. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they want to create this human being to grow to be something that they invented.
Right.
Having babies now is like an invention for some people. You know, and it's just like, it's sad.
They're using the child to pretty much, you're birthing the caretaker for you.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And I've seen it done very unhealthy. But yeah, it's really, at the end of the day, it's not for the child, it's for you. And as the child becomes a little older, like older than 5 or 6 or 7, they become your caretaker, and now they become the parent, which is trauma within itself.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't see that until they start having bad reactions from their parents.
No, you're right. That's one thing that I just always seen that bothers me. It's just because, like, when I went to college and I met different people, you know what I'm saying? I went to 3 different colleges. And the thing of it is that, like, my last college that I went to, it was kind of like life changing for me, just because, like, I went to Southern Wesleyan University, and there was a lot of kids there that was like brought up in the church. Parents was like, oh, well, you're going to be a youth pastor when you grow up, or, you know, their parents were so involved in the church. Cause, you know, like, the churches is what, like, kept the campus going, and, you know, donations and stuff like that to come in, et cetera, et cetera. But, like, you had some kids that came to the university that was very still sheltered. Because, you know what I'm saying, how their parents raised them, or their parents had them when they was older. But then when they come to the college scene and got around different kids who was, like, more freestyled, it was like,
then they get buck wild.
And, you know, parents bickering with the kids, parents mad, you know, telling kids like, you ain't going back, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just like, parents, don't have your kids so guarded. You still can teach your child right from wrong.
Yeah.
But not have them so guarded, because they still got to learn about the real world. Mm-hmm. But the thing of it is, too, at the same time, is that, you know, when you, the other end, if you got your kid guarded and they only learning from your beliefs or whatever, then that kid grow up having other issues.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
They don't think they have other issues, but it's there. It shows up in the relationships and things you do, how you react to shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're, like, screaming, yelling at the top of your lungs at folks for the smallest thing that shouldn't be yelled at, you're having a reactive trauma response.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And that's still from your childhood trauma.
You know, I always told myself, like, I knew growing up, I was like, you know, I was a tomboy and everything, and I love sports, but I already knew in my mindset, I was like, I'm not having kids. I am not physically birthing a child. And everybody, you know how, like, when you're young and everybody want to talk about, you know, everybody went through this, how many kids they want to have, how many babies they want to have. And I'm just kind of like, I don't want any kids. I knew I had too much trauma.
Right.
And I already have, like, you know, 3 siblings. I was just like, I always wanted to be by myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I felt like, man, if I'm by myself, the world will be a better place for me in my head. Because I didn't have to deal with nobody else's mess. Because I grew up, I was the problem solver. I was the fixer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, nah, I'm not having no kid. Because I'm just like, I knew I didn't have the tools to know whether or not I was going to have the patience, because of the simple fact I didn't have that bond with my dad. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I would have been a product of him. And I would never put a child through that. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I just told myself, like, nah, you know what? I need to be able to. But I also thought, like, man, if it's just me, be able to see the world, do whatever I want to do, live that childhood experience when I got to be a younger adult. So I'm thinking I had time to catch up, go back and live in the past and catch up and do the stuff that I wanted to do that I felt like I didn't get or couldn't go or whatever.
Right,
That's how my mom was processing shit.
Right.
But see, if I had a child, that was going to stop. Because now I got to raise another human being, but I'm also raising my inner child. That's too much. I can't, you know what I'm saying? At a young age,
looked at it that way.
That's how I always looked at it. Like I was thinking about stuff like that when I was young. When people would talk about having kids and stuff like that, I'm just like, nah, people like you have kids. Nope. The only thing I'm pushing out is a basketball. Yeah. Because I felt like I need to go live because I was still chasing life. I already felt dead, even at a young age. So bringing another human being into this world, I was just like, nah, that's trauma to me in itself.
Damn.
And that's how I always processed it at a little age. You know what I'm saying? I just always kept that in and I held it to myself.
Yeah, I never looked at it that way. Like
that's how I always thought about it. You know, it wasn't until I was older that I realized like, okay, you know what? Maybe kids ain't so bad. Still not pushing out one. But you know what I'm saying? But the thing of it is just that like growing up, that's how I thought about it. It was too much to handle.
Yeah, I just didn't want kids. I mean, I just wanted to travel the world, do like what I wanted to do.
Right.
And enjoy life. But then kids came, but then I learned a lot of things about myself at that same moment.
Yeah.
Because I think I did it backwards. I had a teenager, then baby. So it was backwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never looked at it. And now that I think about it, you know, I think about like our old generation, like even I think about my dad, right? Like how his parents died when he was at a very young age.
Right.
And he was raised by his siblings. But I always used to be angry at him, not knowing that he couldn't take care of a child because he was dealing with his inner child.
Yeah, it took me the same way. It took me to finally realize, like, when my dad passed away, that, like, you know what? He didn't know how to be a dad because he had his own issues.
Yeah.
You know, but it took a long time to realize that, you know, and, you know, people would tell me all the time, oh, you'll be a good parent. You'll be a good parent. Because like I said, I didn't have no problem working with kids. I was a camp counselor and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, they go back to their parents.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But I always knew I could find and spot the child that had the trauma. Because when you're dealing with trauma, hey, it's like a domino effect. It's like you magnetize. You know what I'm saying? And so I always made sure like the kids that was...
Explain that again.
It's like a magnetic. Like you could pick out a child in a room that's got childhood trauma. Because you're dealing with yours too. When you definitely in tune with yourself. So I always made sure that, you know, the kid that's sitting by themselves or the kid that's being bullied or the kid that looked much less fortunate, I always had a conversation with them to let them know like, hey, just because I may have on name brand shoes and, you know, clean clothes or look up to par, we're the same.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and like it shined light on me more when I became a camp counselor because it was residential. I had to do it for the whole summer. And, you know, I went through stages of having like the kids who was very fortunate, rich and spoiled, and then some of the kids who was less fortunate because they would come in on scholarships and, you know, they would get an opportunity to come to the camp. Because I mean, the camp was for pretty much like the wealthy, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And so like, it taught me a lot. It really did. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I also learned from those kids because I was just like, man, I know I'm a college student, but like, hey, there's a little part of me that's like, you know what? This is what it feels like to be a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like no pressure, no care in the world, just having fun. Really having like a generic smile. You know what I'm saying? So it was just kind of like, you learn a lot from kids. Kids teach you a lot. Kids really do. Especially like, because, you know, do you ever wonder like how it was when you was a kid when you remember so much of the bad that you don't remember the good?
Yeah.
The good actually fade.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just like, being around kids, they teach you in a way to be like, you know what? Hey, life don't have to be so bad all the time. Because kids haven't developed that part, especially when they're young, when they got to worry about real life shit yet. They get to actually enjoy them times. Not all kids are fortunate to be able to do that.
Right. There's a lot of, especially in the hood, a lot of kids that have to grow up fast when they shouldn't have to.
Just like when I coached this year, for the Boys and Girl Club,
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like I had a lot of different kids and I could tell the ones that was going through different stuff, and the one thing that I want every last one of them to take something from it was, pride, dignity, respect, have fun.
Right.
And it's just like being an adult, I still, like I said, be stuck with the inner child.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that other kid's going through. You be like, damn. Hopefully, you know what I'm saying, they just keep striving and getting better and, just stay on the right path. Because nowadays,
right.
A lot of kids are going left when they should be going right. But they're trying to find the easy way out. They're trying to figure out how to escape what they're going through. But I mean, like, this is the world that we live in right now.
Damn.
It's sad, but it's true.
No, it's absolutely. And kids in these day and age, especially with social media, kids have access to a lot of things than we did.
Yeah.
And it's really causing havoc on their emotional being, I felt like.
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, back in our era when, video gaming, for example, when we played video games, you only played against the computer on the console. Yeah. Now you have online. So when you get online, right? I mean, like, you have little kids that's talking like adults. They shit talking. They cussing you out. I mean, people they go in. Little kids go in. You know what I'm saying? On adults and everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, it's really bad online. And, like, they have a parental control and stuff up. But some parents don't care what their kids do. They just buy the system and don't know the full details of how ruthless it is online.
Yeah, I mean, man, I had to learn the hard way when I heard, it was a group of kids. They were about the same age as Christian, and they were talking about race.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, are you black or white? Now, when we were kids, we didn't care what color you were online.
Like, no, we really didn't.
Playing video games. I'm going to kick your ass in this game. So it became very race. It became, what you identify as, sexually. And it was and then, of course, this discrimination started to kick in. And then that's when I realized, like, yeah, no, this is off the chart. It's bad when I have to put on the headphones and act like I'm a kid and cuss these kids out from A to Z.
Now, it's really bad because, I mean, kids get really competitive, but you know what? At the same time, you got some ruthless adults, too.
Oh, man. Yeah.
They go in. I never forget the time me and Phaedra was playing NBA 2K on my PlayStation. Mm-hmm. And, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like sports, but, like, I was never really good at playing basketball on the controllers, especially on my PlayStation. Mm-hmm. And we was on somebody's team, and they just come in, and me and Phaedra on there playing or whatever, and they were just like talking mad shit, just like, you guys suck, who just like boot off the team. I mean, like, they going in. Mm-hmm. And me and Phaedra, we sitting here laughing because, you know what I'm saying, like, everybody know, like, when I play my video games, especially on my Xbox, I like the Call of Duty, the Gears of War. Like, that's my forte.
Right.
And I play Madden a lot.
Right.
But basketball, even though I love basketball, you know what I'm saying, that's my main sport. When it came to video gaming, I never really connect with it like that,
Oh, shit.
And so, like, they were just going in on us. And it's just like, luckily, you know what I'm saying, we was two adults, but wonder if we was two kids. Like, they going in, they didn't care. They talk about your mama, your grandma, they don't care.
They really do cross the boundary line. And sometimes you gotta, I have to really sit down and have conversations with Christian. We talk about entitlement. We talk about bullying. We talked about, okay, how do you feel, when a kid say that to you, call you the N word or,
right.
Call you a monkey. Like, what are your feelings? There's a feeling there that makes you angry, there's something there. So let's have conversation.
Yeah, because I mean, like, most people think childhood trauma just come from in the home. It comes from everywhere. Like some kids, even some adults and actors talk about, man, when I was in school, when they was in elementary school, because elementary and primary school is where it really starts.
It really does.
Pre-K on up.
Really does.
You know what I'm saying? Because, when you got pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, they learn from their parents. They learn from within the home on whether or not they hear their parents, their cousin, their siblings, cuss, whatever, and how they interact with each other in the home. Then they bring it to school.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so they feel like, now I got the upper armor because you know what? I'm a 5-year-old and I'm cussing people out. You may make somebody cry. You thinking like, man, I got power now.
Yeah, but you know what? They also learn that at home too.
That's what I'm saying.
Especially if you have a male that has that male ego. Or,
right.
A female who keeps, females are a contribute too. Don't just think it's male.
Yep.
Like saying, oh, you know what? If you cry, you a punk. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I need a man that's going to do this and that. Like, she don't even know what a man is. And she don't even know what a relationship is, nor do she love herself. So now you're dealing with your mom's unhealed trauma. And so now you equating to, okay, that's what she needs. That's what I'm going to be. So you start at an early age. And then when you finally punk somebody at school, it feels good. You feel like, oh, okay, shit, I'm stepping in my own. Can't nobody fuck with me.
Now you right.
And then at the end of the day, that's not what it is. So we teach our kids, our bad behaviors that we got from our parents, which is their unhealed trauma. And then we have their trauma. Not only that, but we have our own healed trauma. So we just keep passing it down and really tearing our kids apart and not realizing, oh, shit, this is causing some really deep-seated root damage to my child.
Yeah. Now you're right.
We all been there. Let's talk about emotional connection. I say that because that is part of childhood trauma. Emotional connection. You got to have emotional, healthy connection. And the first person that gives you that is your caretaker. And that's where you learn that emotional connection. And you learn how to kind of pretty much shut shit off at that moment.
Yeah. You're right. Emotional connections are important, but sometimes it takes some people a long time to be able to adapt to know what it is.
Yeah.
I know it took me a while. Hell, I'm still going through it.
No, I'm learning. It's, vulnerability.
Consistency with it. Yeah. That's my biggest thing is consistency with it. Cause sometimes I'm just like, you have to make it make sense. Mm-hmm. If it don't make sense, I'm just like, well, throw it in the trash can. Let's try a new one.
Nah, she real serious.
I'm working on it, but it's just like, it's not easy.
No,
some people that, not. That comes with that emotional piece just think like it's easy and just do it. Well, if it was that simple, I would just do it. You know what I'm saying? That's but if I physically don't understand it and what it means, like how I'm supposed to just do it.
That's true.
And sometimes it's hard to explain how it doesn't make sense to you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's just a piece. It's just kind of like emotions are something that is very like crucial.
I don't think we learn I didn't learn as a child. Like I told you before, I couldn't express, my feelings nor my emotions, whether it was happy or sad or good or bad. Like, all I know is like, I'm fucking mad.
Yep, that's how I was.
And not knowing that that anger comes from a fear area, and then expressing your feelings. It's just like, you grow up with parents, and like I said, you teach your kids what emotional connection, what love is like. And then of course they would, I like I said, I don't want to be vulnerable and then be called a wuss.
Right.
I don't want to be vulnerable and be like, you're too needy. I don't want to do those things. And then, or turn around and be vulnerable with someone and they rip your heart out and stomp on it, throw it to the dirt, swing it around, put it back in the garbage and never put it back in. So no, I don't, why should I be vulnerable with someone that would lead to trust issues? Right.
When a person wants you to be vulnerable with them, it's because they're vulnerable. But I don't think they fully understand, like, if you're emotionally struggling to trying to connect, it doesn't mean that you doesn't love them. It just means that the way you are as a person is different.
Yeah.
Because, you can honestly, truly love somebody and you can tell them, like, I love you. I'm in love with you. But if you don't emotionally feel it in the way that they want you to feel it, then they feel like it's not real. Because sometimes people need for you to match their energy, but sometimes energy don't have to match. Sometimes energy don't have to match exactly the same. Mm-hmm. You may get your needs met differently, but like I said, depending on people's trauma.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Like, for an example, if you tell me to bring you a cup of coffee, but only thing I'm able to bring you is the coffee grains because I don't have the water and the machine to make it. Are you going to take the grain? Because you already got the machine and the water.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what it is about. Like, sometimes people force people to try to be like, well, or give them ultimatums to be like, well, you need to be like this by this, or because how they feel, or they feel like they have grown. Mm-hmm. But I think people have to look in the limelight that everybody's different.
No, absolutely.
Because one thing that people say all the time, well, I have trauma too. Everybody's trauma is different. Ain't nobody knocking each other's trauma.
Yeah, everybody's trauma is different.
And everybody's going to deal with their trauma differently.
Yeah. I wish I would have dealt with, learn a little more about, like, just expressing myself. But you're right. Trauma is different. Response is different. Everybody who, that's where the conditions come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's conditions. I remember, I was in college and, me and my ex went to college together, and, I remember being downtown in Jacksonville. It was at the beach. And we went down to this restaurant. It was with some friends. We went down to this restaurant. It was a fancy restaurant. And I remember I saved my Pell Grant for that.
Like, I'm about to go party.
Yeah. But, there was this gum machine, but it had, instead of gum in it, it had rings in it. Right. Mm-hmm. And, me and my ex, we were engaged for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so she said, oh, like, I love that ring. And, and I didn't I didn't feel like that was, cause she didn't have a ring. So, we were engaged, but no ring. And I said, well, wait till we get out of college. I want to get a really nice, expensive ring. And the type of person she don't care about the financial, the money behind it, as long as it's a fucking ring on her finger. Wow. And so, like, she said, yeah, I want that ring. It was out of this, like, machine. I was like, hell no.
Right.
I don't want to give you that damn ring out of it's 25 cents.
Right.
That makes no sense. She was like, yeah, but then it would be on my finger. And I still didn't get it, but those were conditions.
Right.
We both had our own conditions, No, I don't want it. I want something more, at the time, more elaborate than that. Well, it was deeper than that. I just wanted to finish college.
Right.
And then it was, for her, that ring means something more, that I don't know what that fucking mean. I didn't know.
She just wanted the ring. That's what that meant.
That's what she just wanted, the ring. It wasn't fancy. It looked like twigs. But
it was just the fact for her to be like, oh, I'm engaged. Because people would see the ring, they see the hand.
Yeah. That's all it was. And I think a lot of people didn't know that we were engaged.
Right.
And so, finally when they's like, well, I didn't know y'all guys were engaged. Yeah, we were engaged for 5 years.
So yeah, she just needed that for publicity.
I think so too. And I'm like, shit, if we're together, what's the point?
Yeah.
And that's where I leave. But then I was like, I didn't really put much emotions into that. So the emotional connection, definitely, like, being vulnerable was not my strong suit in that relationship. Right. I tried it with my third relationship, and I learned that, shit, you can't be vulnerable. And so I was getting the ass backwards. I should have been vulnerable, should not been vulnerable.
Hey, you live and you learn. That's how I see it. You live and you learn. It's like this. Everybody that come around, it's like, you have to really dig deep within yourself and see, like, hey, how is this person going to help me better myself?
Right.
And how can I help them better themselves? Because It's like this. If you come together and one of you was, gas and the other you was water, gas and water don't mix. You ain't going to start the car with that. That ain't going to help you grow.
Nah, you're absolutely right.
You're going to be stuck in the mud.
You're absolutely right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like, I think it takes a while to get to know individuals, to get to know people. Sometimes people think they know each other within the first year. It takes longer than that.
Yeah.
You're still growing, because sometimes, you know what? If you know a person and a person know you, even if you've known each other for years and you decide to get together, you're still learning each other.
Yeah.
You're still learning each other.
No, you're absolutely right. So let me tell you guys what unhealed childhood trauma manifests as. Fixing others.
Yep.
Have you done that?
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, that would have been on my resume, number one.
Yep.
Especially being
young. I would have got
the
gold for that one.
Yeah.
Codependency. Yep. For me, yeah.
For me, not so much. I feel like I didn't codepend on people like that. I don't know. It's kind of tricky because I was never really codependent. I like to have you in my presence at times growing up, but I didn't need you to say, man, I don't know what to do without you.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I never went that far either, but I felt a little codependency from my part. People pleasing. God, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
This is where you don't set boundaries and you don't put oneself ahead of everyone else. You don't think about yourself. You think about others.
Right.
Regardless how bad it's going to hurt you. You just are thinking about pleasing them. And that's it.
No, you're right.
Okay. Living on high alert. I never experienced that.
Nah.
I know people, that do live on high alert.
Oh, you talking about, hold up. High alert.
Uh-huh.
As far as like being manic?
Like high alert, like always something's going to happen.
Oh, that was me. Like bad things?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Or like...
That was... That was and that still is my life.
Somebody's going to do this, or you're always like high alert.
Yeah. Like. That's me every day, 7 days a week.
That's why when you said nah, I was like, okay, then.
No, at first I was thinking when you said high alert, I don't know why I was sitting here thinking like a person that's high maintenance. That's what I was thinking by high alert. Yeah. Nah, that's totally me. So I should get that tattooed on my arm. High alert.
Fear of abandonment. Yep. I'm learning that today in childhood trauma therapy.
I went through fear of abandonment. You know, I think there's times where now it still like messes with me. But in the beginning, I was really bad. It was just kind of like when my depression really sets in, my fear of abandonment get heightened.
Mm-hmm. Need to prove oneself. Oh, yeah.
Every day.
Yep.
Every single day, even in my dreams.
That's definitely, and I noticed that today when I was working on that childhood trauma, that came up a lot.
Yeah. It's going to keep coming up, just so you know.
Oh, well, thank you.
You know, I'm always just going to tell you.
External validation needed. I used to. Now I don't want it because I'm afraid people true attentions are not true. That makes sense.
Yeah. I used to need validation in a lot of my life, like for everything that I did, even if I made a bowl of cereal. Now I think, I used to have to have validation just to make sure, like, but I think my validation was also making sure that everybody was okay, that I did my part. It was all about making sure I did my part. Yeah.
Why do you think that? That's
well, because I had built this process in my brain that is just like I had to make sure that I did my part and make sure everybody else is good for the day to go smooth and A-okay. If I felt like I didn't do my part, then it was like something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, that's childhood.
Like, yeah, it was tiring. It still is, but you know.
Is that from your dad or just general? Like,
it stemmed from childhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with my dad and just how he was, and then just like trying to be seen, trying to be known, trying to have that relationship with the one person that I really want to have it with. And I didn't. So then it turned into making sure that everybody else, you know, I could somehow find some validation, but it wasn't more about validation. It was more about making sure stuff got done correctly, you know, so you don't get yelled at or anything like that. So yeah,
definitely for me too. Tolerates abusive behavior. Now, just let everybody know it doesn't necessarily have to be physical. It can be emotional abuse.
Yeah, verbal too.
So remember, those are worse than physical. I believe I have.
I did. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it tears you down. So it's just part of like, you know, you grow up and you're a young adult and even in adulthood, you learn from it and you keep moving. But then you have to make sure that you let yourself know that it's not your fault, because not all of it is your fault.
And here's another one. Difficult setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're a people pleaser, you definitely don't have any boundaries. Now, there's a difference in you know, I know people be like, well, you keep saying people pleaser. Let me explain that to you. There's a difference. There's pleasing people and there's being kind to people.
Yep.
Being kind to people is that you have boundaries, and the boundaries are there to make you safe, right? To make you feel secure within yourself. People pleasing does not have any boundaries. You're there to please everybody else while you're being walked on, stepped on, ran over, and there's no boundaries.
Right.
So I don't want anybody to think, well, like we always say, nice get you stuck. That's a people pleaser. Nice is a people pleaser. Kind is not. You have boundaries. You respect people. You know, you care for people. but there's boundaries for you. Deprioritize one's own needs. True. I've done that many a times. I'm learning how to put myself first.
I've done that a lot.
So that's definitely, I know for a lot of us who have childhood trauma, that's definitely hard for us to do. Oh, here's one. Attract narcissistic partners. There's a lot of you, maybe a few of you, that may have attracted narcissistic partners, and you feel alone. You feel like nobody understands. Trust me, we understand. That being said, I want you guys to take some time out and figure out, what childhood trauma do I have? Go off some of the list. You know, if you hit more than 6, then you have childhood trauma. There is a test called ACE, where you can test your childhood trauma and see how extreme you are. And if you go anything past 6, you're extreme. And you need to speak to a therapist. I always say, find a good therapist, that can, help you with some of those childhood traumas, to help you deal with how to, give you the special tools that you need to deal with it in everyday life, because we're going to need those, because you're always going to be triggered in different life in your, I maybe said that wrong. Always be challenged in different ways.
There you go.
But that's something to think about. And remember, if you're rocking back and forth, or you're doing something to soothe yourself, you have childhood trauma. If you're putting your guard up, or if you're avoiding uncomfortable conversation because it triggers you, you have childhood trauma. So like I said, think about it. Sit with yourself. If the noise is too loud and you can't sit, you have childhood trauma. If you fall asleep with the TV on because it's a comfort for you, you have childhood trauma. So that being said, please sit with yourself, take some time, meditate, and then figure out what your childhood trauma is, and then find a good therapist. Not all therapists are good, but find someone for you. That being said, I want to thank you guys for coming out, listening. And once again, for you new listeners, please tell us how you feel and express, what you would like us to do differently or have conversations about. We're always open and not afraid to have them. That being said, have a good night.
Peace.